Hi, I am very fortunate today, like we do every week, that I'm able to meet with Alina Anima, who is a social worker at one of the schools here, and we are going to talk about what exactly a social worker does. And she will give a brief introduction or whatever it's on her mind before we get started.
Hey, Anita. I'm so excited to be here as well. I am one of the school social workers. I actually serve two schools, John Tyson Elementary and Helen Tyson Middle School.
Ano tan Alina pa, charwalilo, chuan social worker, charwalilo chingun chugulu, me charwalilo ro chugulu, John Tyson Elementary, and what is the other one? I'm sorry.
Helen Tyson Middle School.
Tyson Middle School. Okay.
Okay, let's get started. Okay, so there are actually 11 social workers in the district now, and we recently added one school, Don Tyson School of Innovation. So now we are at serving 22 schools. I have listed all the schools that we serve. We start with the elementaries, the middle schools, the junior highs, and the high schools.
Ano, I'm kalikar charwalagayan, and chibangore delwangan rujugul. Your chunguljuan district social worker rore charbalilo rongoro chugulgo emeno danel ladaragin elementary level, middle school level, junior high, high school, and reading Karela Don Tyson School of Innovation.
Right. And something to bring up as well is that we have 3 social workers at Don Tyson School of Innovation, and they split some of the grades. But something cool is that there's a social worker also in charge of virtual students. So if there are needs that families that have their children doing virtual school, social worker at Don Tyson School of Innovation is there to help.
Oh, that's really good. Money away or Don Tyson School of Innovation or Chilu social worker ro imchuani airge cherwali penri jugo reme virtual agar public online. Money away remarong chibangira and all the chedian and marong frustrating and ajiri agar remarong. I would chibang money away or ribang rilo virtual clad in airport.
So meet the social workers. I have compiled a list of the 11 social workers that work that serve our Springdale district. And beside their names, I have posted the schools that they serve as well as their email. So if you have any questions, and if you would like to know if your child's school has a social worker, this is maybe some information to help you with that. I've also highlighted some names in blue. Those are the social workers that speak Spanish. Unfortunately, we don't have any social workers that speak Marshallese, but we work closely with our school liaison and with the ESL office for interpreting. So that's the form of communication that we have with our Marshallese families.
Serbeja chibang ko ngan rujugulum social worker rin right kamani no dan ali karijin penduin ali karaya tayer kali karayan social worker rin chungul chuan gap chugul gain right perie eme chep chugul gain no da kay majar war kali kar email address gain ayer emngo kumane lale ge yor chedat go majar highlighti ngelelin ge highlighti ka rajala kajin Spanish remarong kajin Spanish promo join a chang in word social worker rumajo aga elengien ngarajai guchi bangi gichenu go aga parwawen go chet e go rekanta ge yeselo bigem rejido kum chibanger social worker rain ugo nganajiri rain.
Okay. And moving on, we want to integrate the vision and the mission of the social work program to the presentation, to the parents. Really, the vision is to connect, advocate, resolve, and empower. And our mission is to serve families and students to promote academic success. And we will talk a little bit about how that looks like in the next slide.
And social worker ko vision akatabar ko ay ko bay do roja gwichi bangir reja da kagien ngan kajbaruk chimoy meronga na remit na mejala na bang kap kagajor emission aga pungdan ko ngan tabar katabareo reja chibang ngan rejuguro pamalego im district staff ro ngan chibang im kali karwan malakwan kachujo rejuguro igichen kada kwair imair chala iya yo ipendron sliding tok chuan agay and ikamali elablock melele igichen charbali na air.
Okay. So something that we do first and foremost is that we listen and we connect. We do this by listening. Everything that you tell us, we try to listen with no judgment. We also, something that I would like to really emphasize is that everything that you tell us is confidential. Of course, there might be some communication with school administration and teachers, but we try to keep the information as minimal as possible, really tell the administration, the teachers, really just the important parts, but we will not tell them every single thing you tell us. And that will be kept confidential.
Social worker range or chilu chorwo merit charbali ayo chuan ilowair konag penare mi rain ronja gairum konag per ko balo pen pamle go ilo ay ronja gair ngan pagmelele ijellawin ampai kanono maneo inage melele go ret pugijen ajiri rain ga red confidential red cherry pen bar chapre red kono no gan men go me arami ray gujin chala no rijar bar ram administrator ram agar raban kono no gan men go chen mer jelo go red chabay gujin chala ga gi chena jiri ro.
And our second one is to evaluate. So we will do an assessment, and what I mean by assessment is we will ask you questions and we will try to figure out why, the problem, how it started, and by us doing this, we are able to, it helps us kind of get an idea of what kind of services to provide for you. Sometimes people, unfortunately, they have food insecurities and they might need food. We might connect them to food pantries, but if we want to think long-term, we might suggest them to apply for SNAP or T. So, it's case by case, but we usually ask a couple of questions to get an idea of how we can help.
Yes. Chuan ga ilo ay charbali na dale ilo yen dale ay gujuan pamle paraino lali chicken chibang ko rebellock im kanono ilo dair kan ay gujigay na rano chati yen ga ret lale ngayor menina ay gujigchen mga kia ranarang kanta ga food pan kay aga nga red ballowe ray guj tea aga meno merej ba snack mengain merej apply ngani or red bar one malo dum chibang er evale rejavale chijuin gairum chibang de wa wen go ranaro.
Yes, and our third pillar is to support. We are here to be your ally. We are here to make sure that you have a successful academic year, and we will try to find solutions. And if we can't find a solution, we will try hard to give you something alternative. But ultimately, we will try to do everything possible to make sure you're empowered and you have a successful school year.
Choro kain kajilu igi chenar chibang pamalego na mejalan problem akadang ko kamarong akajore beren chalai pikot mejalan abang ko air bagi ngani lijum chakalai red another power them kali karge rechuda ligi yerim im chibang erilo chabrelo ay wujugo airim manewan and so the worker rain gay kamarong lukwin poge ela melele gichen menina ibugo eno chuan mama aga pabangan chipang ajuri ron ilo menina ibugo air family all of that.
Okay. All right, moving on. So this slide explains a little bit about the services that social workers provide at the school. Some of these include providing resources, which is really mainly what we're known for. We have referrals to food banks if there's food insecurity, or homeless shelters, or alternative ways for you not to maybe spend a night in your car or somewhere if you were to lose your home in a crisis situation.
Social worker roga rejabar ledo chicken chibang ngan chujugun pero eno nge ba rajai win mangai ko kebak food bank kai chibang family jono gar merong agilo homeless igichen homeless shelter aga iman ka pergo man roe chelok muy manair chogoi ngarajai wit kaminene ngan kapiwair cherbal e rajabar cherbali per oleben area gain gar raj perangan chibang.
Okay. I'm sorry for interrupting. Another thing that we do, we provide our mental health services. A lot of people don't know, but our social work team are a group of mental health professionals that if they hold, some of the social workers that hold master's degrees in social workers are actually licensed therapists. And so we provide brief mental health. Of course, brief could be only a couple of sessions, and if maybe long-term therapy is needed, we will refer to Ozark Guidance or Youth Bridge or any other agency we find would be an appropriate fit for the family's needs.
Area jonge riba mental health aga ejemur tibang local kan tibang ejemur local malawjam elengi yenege aga rijar barrain ge bayar tijang loglu feeling er chedage your master's degree reka tiong tibang ilo chabro the wawin or rejelat ajri ro mentally elang rejelo ge chap poe ken really mit ro chapar perong lukwin lawyer elang lojan song jangan mit sedang energia remarungun referir ngan chicken go ched me mental health facilities go mer enot kaineman Youth Bridge
Ozark Guidance.
Yeah, Ozark Guidance all ben chicken remarung barchibang erilo air kalabalok servicing chibang manageri re bagelo ko right with chibang.
We also have a very good relationship with a community partner, the attorney Steve Coker. He has come to some of the social work meetings and informed us of the different services and different things he provides for students and families. So we are able to to have the opportunity to talk to families, and if they have any type of legal needs, we kind of evaluate the situation, and if we feel fit, that their situation is fit, we usually refer them normally for immigration reasons.
Yes. Mane barchuan gichin chibang kainan social worker rain gay ngai gichin immigration service your chuan lawyer charbali per na Evan Stephen Coger lawyer ne chibang area lang ay dongan talangan Arkansas Immigrant Defense Organization ya kay director ngane jabarot case go me regelo we emarong chibang area gichin immigration service et per jangan an chibang area. Right before we go into the next segment, I just want to move back up and cover the second one that talks about the food and clothing.
Okay.
So walang wanyang anchana gay iganan kanono kan paraino mga ilo ay ray with mga imren empalir nugunuk kay nair kigi charam Imkia Jim Chibang Kalaren Wire, it was social worker Ramarong Chibang Kumlo Winegate. Okay.
So what we do for these type of needs like food and clothing and maybe even rent assistance or utility assistance is what we do. It's really case by case, families contact us and, there are certain criterias, but we have a great relationship with community partners, and they're able to provide some relief for some of these things. For food, a lot of our schools have blessing boxes that families are more than welcome to go and get food from. Some schools have food pantries. Contact your social worker and she can get you, some of that food from that food pantry. If at the time we are not able to get any of that, we have resources to community food banks that you can go pick up. I know the Washington building, which is part of the Springdale school buildings, also provides groceries on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Contact your social worker to get you on that list. And we also have other resources where we could actually get Walmart delivery to your house, and we can buy some groceries that you need and have those delivered. For food, for clothing, there are sometimes that counselors have clothes in the building and they can just give them to the students. But if that's not the case, we also have great community partners that have helped us get some funds to go get some clothing for students if they need it as well. For rent and utility assistance, contact your school social worker and get an evaluation to see if what community resources are available for that relief.
Yes. So, elmuna manchi bangay na no dan kamali garit pa din ripen community yinum. Ano dan ba pigitien mga eleng lo parchugul ko red ba provide snack ngan barirum. Nganajiri rainim blessing box ka red ba lelang manir. Nugnu ngan recap pagajan ipen sugul go merit rab narong ba lela nununganir. E ko narong bar pan red ba lelang manir. Etalem kai gujuguj inagainim. Ichen ano the utility kia jam branam cara makarna kai wajabar kalikar angan social worker ilu chukul gan meninai gujigain innem chenir ga ranai tabar resources gain yalan cibang kai nilo community in manair cibang ilo cabar wat wawin ngan family and rajai with cibang.
And moving on to crisis interventions, social skills, emotional support, behavioral supports. This falls under the umbrella of the mental health services that social workers can provide for students and families. Social workers can meet with students to work on these supports, and they're usually referred to by teachers or school staff to meet. Again, this is very brief. Social workers normally meet with students to work on this maybe a couple of times before, if they find fit, they will refer them out to maybe more long-term therapy. For crisis interventions, those are different things. We have some people that are being evicted from their house and need emergency housing. That's a crisis we work with. Yes. We have sometimes, we have had incidents where students are cutting in school and they're having thoughts of suicide. That's a crisis. We contact family and maybe in-depth psychiatric evaluation is needed, but social workers are there to support that as well.
So, in the area na crisis intervention ilo per human with mental health jangan cibang cibang family gin nga bajar ajri rain me rejelo rai with cibang igitien air jolo air chugul kierane kanono perman roman kataner kubado perum lale tayo edager jolo air chugul jadi yen garmarong puglan na ko me and other nan manir magi right but suicidal thought again in them kia ejabarido social worker rainem ramarong mi repair chuane men rokat nilo chuan yen in them rabar lelagir ngan yalan cibang me ene jala blogair par cibang ria gen rejai cibang ye.
And now we're going to move on to McKinneyVento. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about McKinneyVento. McKinneyVento is a law. So, we'll talk a little bit more about in the following slides. Also attendance and FINS support. FINS is just extra support that we receive from the judge. So normally FINS is to support maybe with attendance issues. Attendance has changed in the past from the past rule. Before it was you couldn't miss more than 8 days before we started contacting you or possibly be involved. FINS is more like the court system. But due to the pandemic, we are the school district has been working very hard and is being very flexible. So if you have to quarantine and you have to be gone for 14 days, please bring a doctor's note to justify. If you bring a doctor's notes, those are justified absences and those will not count against you. Now, whenever FINS becomes involved is whenever you start missing more than 8 days and you don't call the school, you don't bring doctor's note. We don't have any reason why the student is missing school. We also try really hard to make it the last resort. We try to call you and, talk to you over the phone and be like, hey, just, he's missed school. You need to bring him to school. We try that. We try meetings. We tried sending letters home. We try everything we can before we turn it over to the court. But unfortunately, if there's no communication from parents, like, we go on a home visit and they're not home. They're not answering their phone. They're not returning calls. They're not coming to meetings in regards to the child's attendance. That's when the school will find it fit to turn the attendance issue over to the court.
Moga jana ne ido gum kabare igitien pensage eno de orbarchet area go ine kono gagim chagar walla lejani aga pensage teni kabare elang kon McKinneyVento ngai on next slide ang attendance at fin support I better book tibang social worker ejeng recap pensage family in need of services for support. Ajiri radagay nagay Rome rajay kuchibang eno dar chalaga ngayala jan rally dagay chago kaya yenuin ranechino call ranechino chiligon lalatangan edan mama papa rom kaya ranechino lale or tar merong chibang ajiri rain gichene dagay recholo gair chugul chedre katkilajim chapperilo chugul raja dali kaya na ngay rabay talam pagkalawir edalangan lo mo tin kono pen mama paparom reche per mo go parchet gain area ebiner tabarir reche buak talabon reche per mo ngner pagmelele ganajiri re najir emi yene win me pins walling da kam re kajion chabro da benu baranjap kijirin paglaw ajiri re ngan family ngan ko da na oliven area gain me reche meron tabarir ajiri ne jologan chugul meno elapta inga kat kilajam jologan chugul e welukun area ne balukun in bobo e peron railo films e meno da archalage eleng krani ne gun lengya na jiri rein ne jirjang lu chugul gain ga eleng meno go re in bobo yem pajalaga recap lukun amman ngere de logo peron recap sapodum chibangir when chagola gair kat kilaja garan emalak mulier benagain e way in geranet social worker rain ranet involve parent rain ko. But before we go on to the next slide, I know because I've been working with parents for a long time, and when they hear social worker, they think, oh no, they might take my child away. They just, after talking with you and hearing about all these good things that they can, get, assistance through the social worker, I'm sure it will paint a brighter and better picture, in the parents' mind, because I know in our community, the Marshallese community, when they think about social worker, they're really careful, or when they know that there's a social worker, they think that their job is to
take your kids away.
Yeah, take the kids away or get them involved with the court. And let me just translate or interpret what I was saying before you answer. Or ano darang chalaga ngay kayang rumajal chejarong kan pa social worker chelgun chabayo ranit pagajiri rain nejin agyo pujin kayang laman rito ka pajala elgin harja ngalo jit slide gainim lali gay ela rolo jen menegay ni me chejak tachonam kanono kon polawiran ko ga rechi bangilo elang wawin ko mi mijar emjam rokarain kamalele gagi chibangilo mga chibangilo chigin chogo chibangilo kapugair charbal chibangajiri ro nejir ngeret ai ku chibangilo kalaman lawa dyan ko meron dyan laman acquire recha ba yung mana all ben binigay nagay dyan chinoin amro karain kanan nagay dyan yung lowe ela video konan social worker rain.
Okay. Yeah, and if you let me add, so social workers do have a bad reputation. I feel like movies and most commonly people just think of social workers as DHS workers. So social workers there are different branches of social workers. So social workers can work in schools like I do. Social workers can work in hospitals. Social workers are mental health therapists. And then there are social workers that do work for DHS, but they're different branches. So being a school social worker, I have no affiliation with DHS. Everything that I do is for the school district. Now, as a mandated reporter, if I suspect that there is abuse or neglect in the home, I can make a hotline to DHS to kind of make them aware. But anybody in the school can do that. I know principals can do that. Cafeteria workers can do that. Miss Anita can do that if she suspects that somebody's being neglected. You can do that. Anybody that works for the school system can call that hotline and report that maybe abuse or neglect that they might be witnessing.
Yes.
So just know that as a school social worker, I just work to provide resources for families. I keep information confidential. And I have really nothing to do with DHS. So if you ask me about DHS, I'm going to know very little. I don't work for them.
Okay.
And I'm not going to take your kids. That's not what I do.
Okay. So kamaroy kanono when wacha diyan ga ilgunito chon pijanga jerong social worker ay kamalali or social worker ilo ay pidalago elang ilo chigun chugul elang ilo DHS, elang chicken government social worker renai perangan kali karge. No chun social worker ilo chicken chugul ga chapai wan ga pigot resources nim chibang ajuri rain. Ngay kachong provide chibang anir chong van marong nam. Ngay ede logo suspect ay logo marong war abuse ay marong war neglect rechap lukwin talarga ajuri rain na jira. Right come da rilo chetwawen. Ewa yin go win emarong column adlainim echawe o de marong call par principal rom rijar barrochet ilo chicken chugul me rejing jage your problem penajirio im kabijune neo ngandukun kali kare echawe affiliated echalagang pen THS joy cherbali chicken chugul igella kuno tanga ene jelo pe minina which we refer call here. Okay.
Right. So I hope that clears a better picture of social workers. You know, I try to make everything possible to have communication with parents, with FINs, with families in needed support. I mean, if again, I'm not the only one that could turn that over, and principals and counselors also turn that information into court. So the school system, we share a lot of the same responsibilities, but we do not take your kids away. We don't take your kids away.
And then my counselor room chugul go all of red tibang roni lo elang wawen go rijar baroko ba yaga kalimurga recha perjan nganair pagajiri ron nejimi and nejiroid.
Okay, so now we're coming up on McKinneyVento, something I wanted to kind of explain a little bit more. I know it was in the previous slide. So what McKinneyVento, it's a law. And what this law, you know, social workers are in charge of kind of identifying people who might qualify for this program and, you know, this law. So to qualify for McKinneyVento, you will need to not have a permanent home. You will need to be living with a family member in a family member's house, at a friend's house, living in a motel or hotel, living in your car, living in campgrounds, just not really having like a permanent home. So legally, a permanent home is defined by, you know, you having somewhere that's under your name. If you're living in one of the places that I listed before, you would qualify for McKinneyVento specifically if financial issues are what led you to live in one of these places that I listed. Some of the benefits that come, or some of the services that McKinneyVento law provides is that all students that are in this living situation are guaranteed free lunch. Parents do not have to fill out the application. Social workers take care of that application for them. They also provide, funds for tutoring or for clothing or for school supplies if parents can't afford to buy certain things. We have a fund that covers those costs. We also have, let's say that the students started off at Springdale Elementary because they were living with a family member because they just didn't have enough money to have their own house yet. But parents saved up enough money and they moved to another house, but the address now belongs to Tyson Elementary. So before you would have to move to Tyson because that's your new address. But with McKinneyVento, because you're part of this program, you let the social worker know, hey, I've moved, but my kid really likes his teacher at MDL. He has friends at MDL, and I just want him to stay at MDL till the end of the year. I will provide transportation. Well, not I, but the district will provide transportation to go pick them up somewhere close to where he lives and bring them to MDL. This McKinneyVento lasts the entire year. So every year at the beginning of the school year, like just now, we're calling families back and we renew that program with them. So it only lasts 1 year. So if you get permanent housing this next year, then unfortunately, I'm happy that you got a permanent house, but you wouldn't qualify for the program anymore. But if you have any more questions, please contact your school social worker and they can go over all the benefits that McKinneyVento law provides.
Chuan bariria janganan kanono kage McKinneyVento kagianin age tibangan family go ilo yen kamagda family go region homeless na je chala chiginair chwe go social worker ro rajbar monana mudai purwer ilo air tibang rigul in family game ema jigana ligun kamelele kain army rain mere pelu chwejenin Ramerong tibang air social worker rain human chuani boy kain army rain gay ngare chogoilo chala chiginair chwe reconsider homeless gan garameron chogoilo hotel rameron chogoi motel rameron chogoi pen family member rameron chogoilo trailer park ko ijogo me wajelo we chala ga region rameron linking ane tair chala chiginair chogoi Aurge wan armi rain go kwajala ga ajiri rain ne jirane lela chibang ane richen mangai gichen palli ragair nugunuk school supply oliven minigin rene chibang irgagim parainot chigula ne bar chibang irilo ngaye wajidong nganair pa remove ngana bar chuan chigin aga ajiri ne lugun kananot perilo chigula nan kiye so the worker rene bar chibang kachiong ligdi wat ajiri ngai je we elugun attaching and ragi ane meganan emanchule pene we rugagi and rene chibangi lo wa winin chongano dair merong boyen comfortable manana enjoy peri but I know that ajiri rain me re perium in McKinneyVento we re baradan renarong echala wona ina irmai aga emmane win gay eno ngai social worker rain me jar dogum chibangi ren peri lelo yalan chibang ko me regelo we rene lu kuin benefit teni im chibangi rilo yenin meno da bai air perido kagieni nim perium McKinneyVento we chuano di regelo we ebar orera adre kierene kiecha wa peri ilo situation.
Okay. Alrighty, so let's move on to the next one. Grocery delivery. This is new that we have recently added to our list of services due to the pandemic that we're in the middle, and we normally deliver, groceries or food or whatever the family is needing. Usually, social workers were the ones that would go and drop it off at their house. But to promote social distancing, if the family doesn't feel comfortable, we can also have them delivered. If families are in need of food, you can contact your social worker and give them like a list of things you might need, and they will happily order them for you and have those delivered. Of course, there's still, they will maybe deliver some in person if they need you to fill out some forms or something like that.
Okay. Grocery ilo air tele baraga pagalak Moktar yung pakalak delivery langan makaya manajiri family guy me rajai with chibang and ba imijan social worker ro kamano gota kia igichener pola mga emrenangan roche dem chicken go rate pakalam mga emrenangan family go kana kay kia kan pandemic ini kay rate delivery lang mga kaya nganir kaya remarong kolom wardarinam regular mga kaya nganir ijella kuno ngay your paperwork your form and me right with fill out yung korene dala rate kaya pero lori man social distancing kay nim mask mo lori kagi ni kay nilo ay dalim deliver kanono per gan chaparod menyo me rajay with peran kanne yung maniwin ka kaya remarong delivery lock menigini or delivery service ngan pakalangan family gin rajay with meninay with kay nair.
And also, we have great community partners that have provided great resources for us to be able to provide for students because, as we talked about in our mission and vision, we want to make sure that students are academically successful, and we will try to do the best that we can to provide whatever they need to be successful, because we've seen that if, there are maybe stress at home, then there's going to be stress at school because kids can't concentrate because maybe they're needing something. So we try to look at the whole student and meet the whole needs to make sure they're academically successful. And our community partners have made that possible by, establishing great relationships with them and making their resources available to our school community.
Padre Rulo Chujungun Pere, where lukun lang community partner or marong Chibang, Chen Chibang or life. Im chojan Padre Rulo Chujungun Pere, with social worker or in marong Chibang thousand rigulum family go. And all by Taylor Chabarod many night with you me Regalogue family on a day with you here in touch pen partner Reina Rilo community in them Kachung Chibangilo, Chabarod Waywin. And all men go charcano kaki manglog area go in me Regalogue Ajiri and Rejai with Chibangi. Here reach out chara manu in gay or our community partner remarong reach out ng air in them pogdog chibangilo chabrod wawin and family.
Okay, and lastly, we have just wanted to let everyone know, just a reminder, or if you didn't know already, just want to talk about the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And if you're, just wanted to let you or remind you all about this. If you're affected or diagnosed with coronavirus or COVID, you can, if your employment qualifies, you can have up to 14 days paid leave to recover and to quarantine and just to make sure you're safe and keep your community safe. If you have more questions about what kind of job qualifies for this, or if you qualify for this, please visit this link, U.S. Department of Labor. Also wanted to make you aware that UAMS is doing deliveries to families who have been affected by COVID. These are food deliveries. So if you're affected or you know that someone's affected by this, please call your school social worker and we can get that set up for you.
Eligdada kalikarod connect na like sick leave airing leave ejido what 10 COVID-19 ngayon mo jam panangan mijine ba cecet kedian ngan kaci do korek kaman ilo agal gene bro chuon rongol ngan tijam ba chulungul chuon rongol kagian active even the Families First Coronavirus Response Act imegar kamanilo ma chungo ralido rongol elela ngan rejer barro ay emergency paid sick leave agi PSL ngan cedian kaci do kongang living right eke lagot ilo nangan mijin COVID Emilo ebrol chuon rongol ebo jaki PSL ngan am reserva rakar im remarong kajarwal kia wat reserva rate full time remarong pagling langan ral dumulawa in EPSL reserva rate part time remarong pag EPSL ilo chuon chonganeo chonganot waran awa agar reserva leo kayan pagailan charwal Emrijar barre rajai we back supervisor royer ya human resource department yung chabarot kachida. Emior barchuang link ko merong itong US Department of Labor link aga ngan chabarot ka chido ko inem para inot kali karge chabarot family ko rit perilo quarantine ramarong deliver eval kijeri lo air kane form ape bayin ilo online UMS chibang all family gain rechel gun kamolol gan UMS bara marong bar chibang family gain lelok menina ibugo igichian mga.
Okay. Alrighty. So that I believe is the end of our presentation, and I just wanted to leave you all with this slide. If you need to take a picture, if you need to write down the name or the email address of your school social worker, please do. If any of these services that we talked about, you're in need of them, please don't hesitate to contact us.
Slide in me qualo even all even social worker rainim chukul gen right periem email address and okonan but when chay namlamit qualo lager chabali giligan tabarer baramuno inchibang ole.
Alrighty, Miss Anita, do you have any further questions?
No, I just want to thank you for your time. Kamolo la ole baro tuninim ronga jage meliligin ramanchen social worker in me ilo Alina Anima eo me agar togum kamelilig chiri kajagan tacher balkinan social worker rain.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I hope this information was helpful. And I really hope I get to meet some of you sometime via email, via telephone call, or I know parents can't come to the schools right now, but you know, we could briefly meet outside if necessary.
Kung merong call, kung merong partabaron nilo nabujin mo inchul ko wait jalagi ibinarwit tabaronan building ko.
Alrighty. Thanks so much.